Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, this is bonus episode 56, and today I want to talk to you about something that I know that we've all experienced. What happens when we're not invited to something and we find out? Whether it's finding out through friends or on social media, what are the things that come up for us and what can we do around this? Because as deep feelers and deep thinkers, it's going to hit us hard. I don't care who we are. I think that this is something that we're going to have a really strong reaction to, but what we do with it really makes a difference. Let me give you a little background. There's a group of women that I've known for probably at least 18 years now. We have a history together around our kids. Some of us had gone to a convention together. Some of us had gone on day trips. We would get together periodically for a get-together. Over the years, as our kids have gotten older, we don't get together as much, but I've spent time individually with some of these women over the years. Some of their relationships weren't sustainable, but there have been a core group of us that continue to stay in touch. And the other night, my son went back to where his school is to spend some time with his friends. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And I had asked him, just text me when you get there so I know you get there safely. And I woke up at about 1:30 in the morning and checked my phone and he hadn't checked in. So I got up and I texted him and he ended up just forgetting, which is kind of typical. I'm okay with that. And I happened to be scrolling on social media and saw that these women had gotten together and had a get together and I didn't know anything about it. My initial response was I felt really hurt and disappointed. I ended up not going back to bed. I sat up for a while and initially it really stung. And what I was reflecting on is the times that we'd spent together and I ended up turning it against myself, the ways that I felt uncomfortable around being with these women and making it about me. Well, I'm too this, I'm too that. It really was an interesting process that, I've been sharing with you that this last year I've been making tremendous changes in my life and letting go of relationships that don't work and really having new relationships that work in amazing ways. And I got really stuck in this old narrative around what's wrong with me and why wasn't I invited and why wasn't I included? And really it touched some pretty injured parts of me. I was up for maybe 2 hours. And I found that initially what I wanted to do was to not honor the feelings and to kind of go right into the thinking part about, well, what are the values that I have in relationships? Do these women meet those values? Do my needs get met in this relationship? And while all of those things were very true, what I found was the part of me that felt really hurt and injured needed to be heard and seen. And there's a little bit of a difference between kind of going somewhere and unpacking our bags and living there and honoring the feelings that came up. And so I really allowed that part of me that felt hurt and disappointed and it felt just kind of outright mean that I wasn't included. And then to see it come up on social media really hurt. So I spent some time just allowing myself to have the feelings and kind of going back and forth between allowing myself to see what that hurt and anger and disappointment felt like. There's history there, there's longevity there, and that makes it a little bit challenging. And I just kind of allowed myself to be where I was. I did make a conscious choice, though, I had a hunch about who in the group had initiated this. And so I made a conscious choice to unfollow this person, not out of anger or frustration, but it's like I got really triggered and I ended up losing sleep over this. And if I know that I'm going to see things that this person is posting about activities that these women are doing without me, the kind and loving thing to do for myself is to not see it. What's the point of seeing it if it's just going to trigger this sense of something being wrong with me and not being included? So I did go ahead and unfollow this person at the time. I eventually got back to sleep. In the morning I got up, I talked about it with my husband, and it didn't sting as much as it did, but I obviously was still really processing through what this was bringing up for me.
I had an early morning and I needed to get somewhere. And on the way, I told you that Laura Carr and I talk frequently. And so I just let her know what was going on. And she responded. And I want to share some of the responses that she shared with me because it really was very helpful. So her response was, it doesn't matter who we are. It's going to sting when we find out that we're not included. And she was talking about in her neighborhood, there's a group of women and she's often not included. Quite often they don't do things that she wants to do, but it still hurts to not be included. And then I was talking to somebody else that morning and sharing what was going on. And she said that she has friends that go out and do things that she doesn't do. And so they don't include her, probably because they feel it brings up stuff for them around what they're doing, knowing that it's not in her value system. I think it's very, very common for us to not be included. But what Laura said was, because we're such kind and loving human beings, it can feel really painful no matter who you are when you find out that you're not included in something. And what she's found over the years is that she just lets it go because these aren't her people. It does dredge up that old narrative of not being included. That's really where we need to put our focus in on the healing, that we need to keep doing the healing around the hurt that comes up and mentoring and loving that part of us that got hurt. It's very likely that we'll still have a charge on it. And the other thing that she talked about is there's a very subtle difference between processing and giving energy to the woundedness, meaning being in it, defending, keeping the wound alive. And I can see how in the past I totally would have done this. I would have come from a place of, look at what these people did, and can you believe this, and how terrible of them, and blah, blah, blah. That to me is living from the wounding. We're deep thinkers. We're going to process things because we want to understand it. So the other way that we can process it that Laura talked about is processing and healing the woundedness. We evaluate the relationship. We evaluate the activity. We can evaluate our values and how we show up compared to how the other people show up. And I'm really clear that that's the place that I was coming from. I really just wanted to understand what was coming up for me. How do I walk through this? And what can I do in the future? And what I found really interesting is by the end of the day, I'd actually forgotten all about it. And I know that in the past, before I had worked on my own healing and my own wounding, this would have consumed me for a really long time. I probably would have gone to the other people's profiles. I would have seen what they were doing. I mean, it really would have been very difficult for me to let this go and to not let the wounding really take over about how hurt I felt over this. And sure, it stung. And I really was able to get on with my day and have a really pleasant day. Now, one of the things that came up that I needed to figure out is, and it turns out that the person that I thought made this arrangement did. I, again, was up in the middle of the night and was curious, and I did go to her profile. There were some comments on the page about, everybody thanked her for arranging this get together. And she and another person I had a little bit of a rift with a couple years ago, they just show up in the world very differently than I do. I really want to be very clear, and I meant to say this at the beginning, that nobody's wrong for doing this. People have a right to have get-togethers. People have a right to not include us. People have a right to post on social media. People have a right to talk about their events in front of us. That this episode is not about telling people that they can't be doing those things. This is about, it's going to happen. That's a fact of life. And this is not about controlling what other people do. This is about when it comes up for us, what can we do so that we get the healing, we get what we need, and we can allow other people to continue to behave however they choose to. So yesterday in the afternoon, I went and talked to my husband. He often is the voice of reason for me. And I was really trying to decide if I wanted to unfollow this friend on social media, knowing that I was going to do an episode about this, being very clear about what my intention in doing it was, not to call anybody out, not to shame anybody, but do I want to draw attention to the fact that I had a reaction to this? And I have to say that I'm on social media a lot, and I just was reading a post from somebody else who got into a debate online with somebody about something very, very different. And the people that he got into the debate with ended up going and writing very poor reviews on his podcast in a form of retaliation. So that was kind of in my mind. And I really had to, I think ideally I would have wanted to sit with this and wait to figure out what to do about, do I want to friend or unfriend? But knowing that I was going to release this episode, I I felt more of a pressure to do something. And as I talked with my husband, I really saw this struggle that I had around. I mean, the bottom line is I honestly don't think that this person thinks a thought about me. I think if I unfriended them, they would have no clue. If they realized it, I don't think it would be a big deal to them. I think they'd be like, okay, whatever. For me, it's interesting. I'm really seeing that this is an area where I haven't had a chance to look at and do growing in because I have a sense of loyalty, responsibility. What are they going to think? They're going to think I'm retaliating. I mean, just this huge energy around what it means to unfriend someone. And I'm thinking it's better to unfollow and then they don't know. It just was very interesting to see how much energy I had around the thought of unfriending them. Good morning. If you listen to an earlier episode that I did about we never know how we impact others, I talk about my neighbor Chewy who walks by my front window in the mornings, and he just walked by and he always stops and he looks and he says, good morning. So I said, good morning. Anyways, I really hesitated with this unfriending. And in the middle of the night, again, I woke up. That's kind of my thing. I wake up in the middle of the night and I did unfriend this person. And it really brought up some things for me, like I'm being disloyal. And I think here's what I'm imagining is highly sensitive people. We have these high levels of empathy and we want to be kind and we want to be nice and we don't want to do anything confrontive. And I really had a hard time unfriending her. And I don't think she's going to notice. And if she does, I don't think she really gives a rip about it. So I'm just naming it because I know that I'm not the only one that experiences stuff like this. What I have to say is this morning when I woke up, this just is really not anything that's on my radar. I really do believe that even though we're deep thinkers and deep feelers, and maybe our parents didn't always get us, and so we have some ways around being highly sensitive that we feel are wrong or we judge ourselves, I honestly believe that we can learn to work with our traits and do the healing around the wounding that we have so that it doesn't own us. I honestly believe that in the past, this weekend probably would have been very strongly colored by this thing that happened, and I'd be talking about it, and it would be coming from a place of hurt and injury and wanting everybody to know how hurt I was and how unfair it was. And yeah, it sucks. I'm not saying it doesn't suck. And I got lots of other things going on in my life. And I have to say, it's very interesting that we really have an opportunity to evaluate these relationships when we're not included, to really look at, are these people that we feel really seen and heard by? Are the relationships reciprocal? Are they mutual? Are we the ones that tend to reach out and ask about getting together and then the other person doesn't ask us? I think we often miss these signals. And when I was sharing about this incident with someone yesterday, this other person was telling me she shows up for everybody in their lives and she's helped people move and do all kinds of things and help with their kids. And she recently moved and she reached out to all these people that she's helped and nobody even responded to her. And one person came to help her. And it was really an eye-opener that we tend to be such giving, loving, caring people. We really want to be there for other people. And we often fail to evaluate how are the people in our lives showing up for us. So if you have this going on and it stings, allow the sting to happen. And allow yourself to have the feelings around it. The wounding and the hurt that comes up needs healing, and we're the ones that can heal it. We need to give ourselves that compassion, that care, that love. If we need to get mentoring around it because we can't figure out how to move through it, talk to a therapist. I do coaching. This is something I'm obviously working on and have worked through. I would love to work with you. But find somebody to help you if you find yourself getting stuck and you're ruminating and you're feeling wounded and you're living in that place of woundedness. We don't have to be in that place anymore. We have lots of options. There are ways that we can work with this stuff so that we get freedom. If you're listening to this in real time, this episode is going to come out Sunday morning, September 15th, 2019. I still have a few spaces open in the online HSP course, and I really would love to see all of those spaces filled. There is no early bird pricing anymore. I dropped the price. If you're not able to afford the full price or you need to make payments, I really want people to get these tools, and I am so excited about them and believe in them. If you're inclined, send me an email at unapologeticallysensitive@gmail.com. Let me know what you can afford. If you need to make payments, if I'm able to work with you, I can. Let me know which groups you're interested in, because some of them are much more full than the other ones are. If you need information about the groups, you can go to unapologeticallysensitive.com. There's a tab for the HSP online groups. If you don't know what I'm talking about at all and you're a first-time listener, you can listen to bonus episode 54. I can't even remember what it's called. And there's episode 37, the overall strengths and struggles of the highly sensitive person. And I will do my best to link in the show notes to the episodes that I'm telling you about. These courses have been transformational, and I really believe in them and would love to have as many people experience them, because I think that you can make the changes that are possible so that we can have more freedom in our lives. We can be deep thinkers and feelers and not get hooked by these things that are just going to happen in life. I hope you found this really helpful. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.